gonna jump right into it. I don't think this is gonna be the last time you and I are gonna be like talking on this podcast, but
Okay.
we're just gonna start talking.
So I want to tell you something about this though,
Yeah, yeah.
because, and this is why like I love this journal so much. I know we're supposed to going to be talking about branding, but I like feel like I'm going to die if I don't tell you this. I think I told you this before, but this is something on like my healing journey. I'm in the middle of like an identity shift, right? Like everything from the outside looks the same, but like lots of things inside are changing. And so what happens is that, what happens is you have to let these old versions of yourself go. Okay. When you recognize all of the things and all the ways that you've deprived yourself of what's right and true to you
Mhm.
because of whatever blocks were in your way that were your own blocks, right? Whatever things you may not have dealt with, once you deal with them, then you see that. So there's a lot of grief involved in that because you're grieving this old life. You're grieving all the things you're letting go, pieces of you that maybe could have been or but never were because you couldn't move past something.
Mm.
And I actually have not started writing in it yet because as I have this, I'm actually afraid to open it and start writing in it. So if you have this journal, whatever grief you're writing about, whether it's yourself or somebody else or someone in your life or anything that you are having an experience, like a coping experience or emotional experience, if you're finding that it's hard to even open the journal to start writing, that is the biggest sign that you need to start yesterday. As someone who has experienced severe trauma, right? I was assaulted when I was 25. So that was severe trauma. Oh yeah, I've been through trauma therapy and there's still things that are now resurfacing that will trigger that. So anyway, I
Anyway, you like bounce pass out. Okay, well, let's put a pin in
yeah,
that
I'm
one.
like
We might
anyway,
get back
well,
to
I don't know. I mean,
that.
it's not like a trauma podcast, but
This is a trauma podcast. So
this is
no.
now a trauma podcast.
No, I made the joke about it being a finance podcast. And the guy that I just recorded with, he's a lawyer. And I was like, this is a law podcast. So I'm going to be able to put this in so many different categories, Emily. Yeah, like what happened? What happened? As your friend, I'm like, what happened?
I, I know you're like, what happened? I haven't really shared this story publicly. I
I
don't
mean, you
know if it
don't,
will help anybody,
I was gonna say,
but I'm
if you
happy
don't
to.
want to, you don't
The
have to.
the no, I think it's important to share these things because the short cliff notes are okay, hold on. I want to back up.
Yeah,
One sec. One sec before we dive into that because that's going to
yeah.
stem into a whole other thing. So in psychology, they say that when you revisit your trauma, it's often feels worse than when you experienced it the first time. That's why trauma work is so hard. That's why so many people are walking around with like busted nervous systems, all kinds of autoimmune problems, body aches, and I'm a testament to that. You know, I've had a really hard health journey in the last couple of years. So it comes down to okay, well, am I going to face what's still lingering in my body because your body remembers it. Um there's that book, The Body Keeps the Score. I've gotten through maybe like 20 pages. It's really dry and really hard to read.
Just warning you.
But your
Oh,
body remembers it. So your body
yeah.
stores those emotions and experiences. And what happens is it lives in there and then it will manifest in ways. So unless we meet those emotions, it lives there and wreaks havoc in our body. So something like this grief journey, like this journal, I'm going to use to write about all of those things
Oh, hell yeah.
because that has been carried with me for so long that it's time to just let that go. And it's obviously going to always be an ongoing journey, but there are major things to really pay attention to. So yes, so it's harder in in recap, they say it's more difficult to face those emotions now, and they're harder to experience afterwards versus when it's actually happening.
Wow.
So on the other side of that, what that looks like is, and there's memes all over the internet about this too, is letting yourself hit rock bottom so that you can feel better after. Because re-experiencing those feelings It's you're alchemizing those emotions.
Mhm.
So it's hurts and it's hard. And then, you experience what we like to call a purge, and that can be just sitting with your emotions, sitting with the heaviness, crying, screaming. Maybe you want to punch your pillow. That's all release of emotion, but doing it in a healthy way. And then on the other side, you wake up the next day and you're like, I needed that. And then you've opened up this space in yourself to be able to receive anything that's like more nourishing, or just a like a healthier, happier life. But it comes in layers and it comes in steps, so it's a constant ongoing thing, but each time it gets light, the load gets lighter and lighter.
When did
It's a
you
tough
start?
journey.
Yeah, when did you, if you had to like look back on your, and I don't know if you would refer to this as like your personal development.
It took me a long time after the incident happened. We'll go into it. I'll give you the like the cliff notes. After the incident happened, it was almost like I was living in a dreamland, because of the way that, traumatic experiences alter your brain.
Mm,
It's literally like you look at a person with a traumatized brain, their brain looks different. You can rehabilitate that,
mhm,
but it takes work. It takes hard work and dedication and love to yourself.
mhm,
But no, I want to say for the first 2 to 3 years, I went about my life like nothing was wrong. But during that time, I just was on this downward spiral of like using food as a coping mechanism, over exercising, like beating up my body, and that, food and exercise, a lot of alcohol in there. I don't say I don't drink alcohol now. I do drink it, but very rarely.
mhm.
So those types of things. And then it was also eating away at me. It was eating away at my self-worth. So it got so bad, and I didn't even realize, when we're not paying attention and we're not practicing mindfulness. And granted, at the time, I didn't even really know what that was. I just knew that that thing happened and I was moving on with my life and getting better. But meanwhile, on the inside, I was just crumbling, and I couldn't ignore it anymore until I was like gaining all this weight because like I just was eating and eating. And then on top of it, I noticed that I couldn't look people in the eyes when I was talking to them.
Interesting. Did someone say
Mhm.
something to you, or did you just start one day like notice it?
No, I noticed it. I noticed that it was really hard to look people in the face. It was almost like torturous to look people in the face when I was talking to them.
Wow. Oh my
Even
gosh.
sometimes now, like every once in a while, it'll be if there's something uncomfortable, sometimes,
Uh,
yeah, it's hard for me to make eye contact, and I like it comes back a little bit.
Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
interesting. I think that's the piece of my grief journey so far. I'm only like 6 months into it. Is yeah, like all of those self-realizations of, oh, like I'm coping in this way, or why did I just, act like that, or why did I avoid this situation, or what was the thing that triggered me? I mean, where were we? Oh, we were at happy hour last week. We were just like grabbing some appetizers, and a mom and a daughter walked in, and I like it was a trigger for me, and I was like, "All right, we've gotta like we this can't happen every time you see a mom and a daughter like you that you break down. Like you either want to fix it or you don't." And it's like, let's dive into that. And so I feel like every week I start having these like realizations and tapping into like little trauma points that have happened along my grief journey, and shit.
When that happens, do you use your book? I'm gonna hold it up again.
Yep, yep. You know what's
Do you use your
interesting
book?
is when I like put like all of the prompts in the book, they were things that I had started writing. So it's like wrote them once. And now I've even noticed like just what we were talking about before, as like there's been days where I've avoided writing in it because it was like, you know what? No, I just want to be sad today. I just want to be mad today. And to me, writing in this journal means like I'm making it better, and I don't want it to be better because I'm mad about this. Like I've had experiences with that, and then I've gone the other, and like I'm aware. I'm like, journaling this down would be like the best thing for you right now. Like write it down. So I battle with those two different Adrians.
Yeah. And I
So,
think what I hear too is, when we experience, and this can go like way deep into something, I'm obviously not a therapist, but I've studied a lot of psychology and in my own journey. I mean, my assault incident happened when I was 25. I'm 38 right now. So, and then you have to, give those 2 to 3 years where not only was I not working on it, but it was getting worse because
mm,
it's like if you have an infection and you don't keep it clean, it's going
mhm,
to get worse.
mhm,
That's the same thing as not dealing with your trauma.
oh yeah.
It is going to manifest in all these negative ways. So, what I was saying was, it sounds like it sounds like you almost wanted to stay in that place, like you didn't deserve better. So
Mm,
where are you blaming yourself for what happened?
right. I don't know. That's interesting. I wonder.
Yeah.
That's what I need to write about in my journal now.
I know. I'm
For
like,
real
wait,
though.
I'm like, wait, hold on. Let me
Yeah,
take a
let
note
me
because I want to write that down too.
that's a good one.
I'm
No,
like, I
but
need to journal about that too. And that's why. So this is something that we call shadow work.
yeah. Okay,
And
I don't think I've done it. If I've done it, I've unknowingly done it. But do you know how, like, when you start hearing things like I kept hearing Akashic records, I kept seeing it brought up, and I just knew I was like, it's time to book my first session. And then it was like the Reiki thing. Remember we were talking about this? I'm like, it keeps
yes,
coming up. And so I need to schedule that session. The word like shadow work, that phrase has been coming up. And so now I'm like, I need to like start learning about this. Tell me what it is. And why is this called shadow work?
okay. So shadow work is where we explore the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves.
Oh God.
So,
Pull up we need a glass of wine for this.
yes.
Oh God.
Yes. In that's why when we are experiencing any challenges, any of these emotions that are hard to face, that's what your shadow work is.
Mm,
And that's where the most important part is to bring love and caring and hold on. Love and wait, I'm like mixed up.
good.
The most important thing in that situation, or the most important thing, is to really bring love, care, and kindness to yourself. Like you have to meet yourself with grace because it's hard. And things like blame show up, shame, um, all of those emotions can come up, and that's shadow work. So it all kind of circles back to self-acceptance and self-love and how we view ourselves, what stories maybe we're tied to that are keeping us, quote unquote, stuck. I don't like to use that word because I feel like it invites that
Mm,
it
mhm.
invites that in. So I try to be really intentional and purposeful with the words that I use because the universe is listening. The
Right.
universe doesn't understand words like can't and don't, etc.
Mhm.
So what are we putting out there that is, a positive vibration that's going to bounce back in that same way?
You kind of mentioned this happened when you were 25,
Mhm.
and it wasn't until about 3 years in where you were like not working on it. What was like the first thing that you did to kind of work on your healing journey? So you would have been 28, 29.
Yes. The first thing I did was research a trauma therapist.
Oh.
I researched a trauma therapist, and I paid out of pocket for this gentleman. And I think he was in the Midwest. He was absolutely wonderful. I think his name was Scott. I don't remember. He's still in my email. I'll have to like dig him up. But I researched a trauma therapist, and this man works with um, what's the word I'm looking for? He works. Okay, who does he work with? Okay, so sorry,
You're
I'm
fine.
like, so this man works with like veterans or any kind of military personnel that have PTSD,
Mhm.
which I thought was really interesting that I
Yeah.
found him. But we had a conversation, and he said, "Well, it sounds like it would be a really good fit." And that was the beginning of the alchemy, because once you start facing all of these things, that's when you start noticing, oh, it's almost like if you have like a dimmer on your light switch,
Mhm.
it's like the light just gets like brighter and brighter and brighter.
Wow.
So, there's relief there and there's, happiness and lightness, but also at the same time, it can generate those grief feelings too because you realize what passed you by.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that shadow work is the balance of that. And it's an ongoing journey. It's never, I think the biggest thing is, people will go to therapy and, they'll start and they'll stop. It's an ongoing journey. And one of the things about this life and the people that come in and out of our lives is that they're meant to do exactly that. Not everybody is meant to stay with us forever. Not everybody. And sometimes, there are short journeys. We do go through different seasons of life. And oh, hold on. Wait. Okay, I like to read books from the young adult section of the
Oh,
library.
love.
And I actually bookmarked this. I just finished this book. This is The Last Fallen Realm by Gracie
Mm,
Kim. And this guy, Rick Riordan, who writes all these amazing novels. But so yeah, I like to read about all this
I
fantasy
love
stuff.
that.
But this woman that wrote this story, there's a lot of lessons in this book, which is really amazing. And I finished it, but I have it bookmarked still, and it's right next to my desk here, which I think is really appropriate for our conversation right now.
Yes.
But it says, there is some merit to the idea of seasons of change. Sometimes things must end for new things to begin. And that is like the epitome of the grief journey and the
Mhm.
healing journey and also the people that we meet in this lifetime. So when it comes to therapists, I didn't work with that therapist for forever. I maybe worked with him for about a year. And then as you travel on your journey, on your healing journey, then there's someone else that's going to come along that can support this new version of you because you in my personal opinion, in my personal opinion, you want to change therapists. You want your support system to evolve because that means you're evolving.
I I agree with that, and I agree with that in like what I do, like business and marketing and in careers. Like you don't want to be always doing the same thing and like
Yeah.
new level, new devil like, way. I think that that's in a you want to be evolving, and that might not even necessarily mean like, higher ranks and positions or more money, but it should
Mhm.
always look different. And I think sometimes that's why people stay in certain jobs that they're not happy in, is it's because they would have to face those fears or those traumas or those what ifs of, oh, I'm not, worthy enough for this. And they start to become miserable people, and because they're grieving this person that they like once were, or their jobs are not. I see that all the time, especially with business owners.
That's exactly it, is the challenge of facing, like, what do you need to face? What hard can I curse on this? What
Mm,
hard shit do you need to face?
yeah. Wait, okay. So you start working with someone, you're 28, 29 years old. From there, what were you doing like in your professional career or like at that time in your life? Like, did that play a role in like your, can we call it your spiritual journey and like where that's all evolved?
At that point, I was not on a spiritual journey. I really didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I was in a really bad place in my life. So, no, I mean, I was in New York City at that time. I was working in corporate. I worked for Cartier in their corporate office, and then I worked at David Yurman in their corporate office.
Oh, cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my background is in my whole life is in luxury.
Yeah.
Uh, even like where I grew up in Short Hills, New Jersey. And if anyone listening has ever been to that mall, it's the most fabulous mall you'll ever go to. It's so wonderful. It is like heaven in a mall. It's amazing.
Oh, I love
Even if
that.
even if you cannot afford to shop there, I recommend visiting it. It is just exquisitely put together. It's so beautiful. It is just true art. It's beautiful.
I mean, and I'm not just saying this to be nice, but like when I look at you and your brand that you've created for yourself. Luxury would be a word that I would use to describe it for sure.
I love that. And the thing is, I don't do that on purpose. It is truly an embodiment of who I am because I believe in quality. Essentially, that is the core, that is a core element of luxury is quality, whether it's quality service, quality goods, quality whatever, it's quality.
So you're a David Yurman, Cartier
Mhm.
girly. So that's where you were at in your professional career at this point, and you hadn't really like you weren't really on much of like a spiritual journey at all. Take us through kind of what happens next. You're in New York.
No, I didn't, honestly, I did not start my spiritual journey until probably maybe 3 years ago.
What was the like aha moment? What was the thing that you're like, "Mm, okay.
I kind of just stumbled upon it by accident. My friend told me about this woman. She said she's amazing. And so I went and met with her, and that was the beginning of my whole journey. And we're responsible for ourselves first and foremost. And so if we want things to change and we want things to be different, how can we do that, right? We have to help ourselves. So what does that look like? And it starts with what's in our head, the way we view things. If things are not working or we have a story, what's the story? What's the story you're attached to? What is the story you're telling yourself? Because I can guarantee that whatever story you're attached to is the reason you're in the same place where you're at, where you're not moving beyond that place.
I agree with that. And you know
So
what?
what can you do differently? What can you do differently? How can you think differently? It's a whole thing.
Mhm,
There's a way to phrase and present things that can be more supportive
mhm.
of what it is. We don't need hate or stress or anything like that. I mean, that is definitely not a supportive statement at all. There's nothing about that statement that makes us want to look at ourselves and say, okay, yeah, I want to do better. It's going to immediately put you on the defense, and that's not helpful.
Right. That's
So,
yep, that is true. That's true.
yeah. So
Oh
the
my,
so the spiritual journey didn't start until a few years ago.
okay, I love that.
Back in New York City, at the same time I was working in corporate, I was also preparing for a fitness competition.
Is this
So
when I met you? When I feel like I knew you during the time when you were also doing fitness competitions.
no, I think I had just because that was time, right? When you were in
Yeah,
time.
yep, yep,
No, so
2016.
I had just moved I had just moved to Cape Cod. I want to say maybe like a year before that. So that's probably why, because the show that I won my pro card at, I won two shows. The second show I did, I won my pro status. So there were two different organizations. So I would go back every year and help out with the show as my way of, giving back, and it was a really amazing experience to go to these shows and help with the competitors backstage because, we wear our pro sash, we would have a dress on, we did, the whole thing. And these competitors really look up to you, and I think it's really important to have people in our lives that um, show us that there's more available, show us that there's next levels we can reach, show us that we can do hard things, show us that, when we commit to something, we can achieve whatever it is we want to achieve. And if we're not doing those things, then, you know, maybe we're out of alignment.
Mhm,
So what is the most right and true? So it's really I think it's really important to show up in that way for people. You've accomplished something. Okay, how can I pass that down? Because whether it's in school, whether it's like podcasts like this, right? Whether you have a mentor, it doesn't matter. The knowledge is still being passed down, but it's, how is it being delivered?
mhm. When you got injured, were you kind of was like the hope of continuing to compete something that you still wanted to do, or was that next stage like, okay, my knee tore up, like this is over?
No, okay. So that's what I was saying. No, I always had that little glimmer of hope that I would compete again. But as I started healing, my priorities changed, and I just honestly, I let it go. I
Mhm.
looked forward. We're not going
Right,
backwards. The
right,
past is the past. I just kept going forward.
right. So you came back home, or you came to Cape Cod. How far is that from like where New York City's at?
Oh, it's like 5 hours away. It's Massachusetts. It's right outside of Boston. It's
Okay.
about an hour. If you're lucky and you don't have traffic, it's an hour and a half outside of Boston.
Okay, cool. So you go back home for your rehab. What were like, did you have any intentions, like professional wise, like what you were going to do when you came back home, or what was going on at this point?
I had no idea. All I was focused on was healing. I was going to physical therapy several days a week. And then on the off days, I was resting and just healing myself. And I was getting some workers' comp at the time. So that gave me this safety net. I want to say like a safety net, or maybe not even a safety net. I don't know. But in that period of time, it was about, I want to say it was about a 7 month, oh my gosh. I want to say it was a 7 month period from when I had surgery to when I was done with my rehab. So I was doing physical therapy few days a week, and then I had off days. And that just gave me the space to rest and recover, because it was also a really challenging mental journey as well. I couldn't exercise the way I wanted to. I
Mhm.
couldn't do a lot of things. And on top of it, I had moved out of New York City, moved out of my apartment, not working at Yearman anymore, done. So things were totally upside down. So in that time, I got my ACE certification, and which is for personal training. And then
Okay,
I enrolled in Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So I was studying holistic health and nutrition. So I'm certified in holistic health and nutrition. I am
that's so cool.
way deep into all this stuff. My online presence is, luxury and real estate and that whole thing. Um, but I would say that I am way up on all of the new holistic health and nutritional things,
I love
just as
that.
much as I am with the real estate. So, but they all, they kind of overlap,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, you're looking at healthy living. So I did actually coach a few people. I helped a lot of people lose weight. I helped this one client, I think it was 50 pounds she lost. I can't remember. But then she was able to get pregnant, have children. And I just saw her photos the other day. Her kids are like, they're probably going to be preteens soon in a couple of years, which is wild.
Oh my
That
gosh.
the impact that I had on somebody, it changed their life, for the better, for something she really was really meaningful for her. So that's kind of the my vision at this point for whatever I put out is, how can I give back now?
Love that. Is there something in particular right now that you're working on, or that's like really driving you to do that?
Yes. There's a piece here though. In between my in between finishing my physical therapy and beginning my real estate career, I went to Las Vegas for a little less than a year. And I lived there. I was in a relationship at the time. So I lived there. So I didn't have to worry about anything but my school, which was really nice. I was doing fitness stuff. I worked for Muscle Farm at the Olympia, which was really cool. I met Arnold Schwarzenegger for 5 seconds, got a selfie with him. That was cool.
That's awesome.
So I've had some really amazing experiences in my lifetime. I have lived a whole life already. There's been way too much already. That ended. I just said, my relationship was not what I wanted. And I said, okay, I have a choice. I can stay here on the West Coast, or I can go back to Massachusetts. And I'm from New Jersey. So, of course, there was always that pull of like, well, I kind of really want to go back to New York. Do I do that? But at that point, I was healing from trauma. I was healing from surgery. I was healing from all these things. And I just needed to be with my family. My parents are here on Cape Cod.
Mhm.
So that's where I wound up starting my real estate career. Okay. So I'm going into my 10th year of real estate.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know. I just, I just knew. I said, okay, what do I want to do now with my life when I move back here? And that's what I chose. And I just dove dove head in. And I've worked on a million different properties, a million different transactions. I could tell you literally everything. And that's what has manifested over on my social media, which is, I think, where we connected.
Mhm.
Okay, so my social media originally was a fitness account.
Yep.
for the people that have been here a long time, and this is when you and I connected, I was EVG underscore WBFF Pro.
Yes, that's
That was
right. That is right. I remember that handle.
I
That's
would
so funny.
love I would love to know if anyone remembers that because that was my identity for a long time.
Yep, I remember meeting you then, and I remember following that.
That was my identity for a long time. And so it was kind of like fitness and real estate overlapping. And then all of a sudden I just like went headfirst into real estate.
Oh my gosh. Was that an easy transition for you to go from really like identifying as, from the fitness industry into real estate? Did you mean to do that? Was it intentional?
No, when I think back to it, I think I probably felt a little lost at the time because I was restarting my life in a new place, in a new career. All I knew was the fashion industry, the fine jewelry industry, in this corporate world. And here I am now starting my own entrepreneurial journey, right? So that there's a big identity change there,
Mhm,
completely different. And so no, I think I felt a little lost then without realizing it. And just learning about this new person that I was, this new life that I had. It really was very surreal. And it was an adjustment that definitely took me a few years to make. So, I went through many years of trying to understand my new life.
mhm,
And that really just looked like taking things day by day, struggling a lot, emotional stuff coming up, relapsing on some of the trauma things that were showing up.
mhm,
Because there are coping mechanisms. Anyone that experiences extreme trauma like that has coping mechanisms. So when those show up, those are a flag that's saying, hey, we're struggling, help, help. This is your sign to let you know that you need to pay attention.
mhm,
Um, but again, I wasn't on that journey yet, so I wasn't as self-aware as I am now. And that's the most beautiful place to get is when you can say, okay, I accept myself for my faults. I accept myself for the things that have happened to me. They were not my fault. Releasing blame and saying, okay, if something happened that I didn't like or something that was hard, how can I change that? How can I look at this from an angle of how can I do better next time? How can this help me? I'm open to learning about having a different and better experience going forward. Otherwise, we just stay the same.
mhm,
And that can be applied towards business as well. And once I started really coming into myself was the point where people started entering my life in the real estate business. So, you know, going back to having people in your life that you can model after is important because we don't know what we don't know.
mhm,
So how can you have goals? How can you have things that you want to achieve if you don't know they're available or
mhm.
what's available to you? We need these examples in our lives. So important. Um, so you know, as I went on that journey, then I was able to do some more self-discovery and learn more about myself and know myself better and know what I wanted and know where I was going. Um, I think in that journey, I worked and worked and worked and worked. And part of this grief journey, and this is something that is going to go in my journal because it's such a big part of my story, is exactly about that is all the time I spent working and working and working because I was so focused on these goals that I didn't allow myself to truly live, to truly experience things, to slow down, and that in itself was a trauma response because
Interesting.
it didn't allow me to feel.
Okay. Yep. Yep. That's how far into like you grinding did you realize like, this is actually a trauma response? Because I know that you were busting your butt there for a while, like you were doing all the things. So was there an aha moment where you realized like, I'm looking to work to kind of like use this as a coping mechanism?
I was doing all the things and more. I was doing all the things and more. I honestly didn't realize it until recently. To
Really?
be fully honest, no. Because recently is the most shadow work healing that I've done.
Mhm,
And we can only meet ourselves where we're at.
mhm.
So it's taken me 3 years to get to this place, to be able to really dive in deep. My body realized it about 3 years ago,
Mm.
or maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was at the end of 2020
Oh.
when I was insanely busy during the pandemic. And after my last deal in the fall, I said, "Okay, I need a break." And I remember this because I went to Gurney's in Newport and just had this like fully relaxing experience. And after that point, when I allowed myself to rest, was when my body started falling apart.
Oh, wait, that doesn't feel like that's fair.
So that right there is my body telling me, "You're overworking me. I'm overloaded with emotions, with trauma, with things that need attention."
Mm.
And it forced me to pay attention. For I wanna say for a good over a year, I didn't know whether I was gonna be able to get out of bed or not. There are a lot of days in 2021, most of 2021, I spent probably in my bed. And
Really?
yeah, and I there were days, and if I was showing up, it was because I woke up and I was like, "I feel great today. I'm gonna go do something that's gonna bring me joy because I don't know." And then the next day, I would be so dead, I wouldn't be able to get out of my bed for 2 days.
Wow. How long did that go on for?
Oh god, over a year. I was seeing doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor,
Because you wanted
and
to feel better, like, you knew that that wasn't, like,
mhm,
normal. Okay.
yeah, like the extreme fatigue, I was having swelling, and then on top of it, I got exposed to mold. So I live right by the water, and we have our air handler serviced every year. However, you live by the water, there's moisture, these things happen.
Mhm,
I live in a new home. It's not, and mold can happen
mhm.
to anybody, especially living near the water. So, actually, my real estate experience is what kind of saved me and from that
Wow.
because I had gone away. I went to Las Vegas for Deluxe Version magazine. And I said I should not be going on this trip at all. I felt awful. I felt awful during the party. My stomach was so swollen. It was awful. I remember just feeling terrible, but I didn't want to miss out on this event that I was invited to. And I had won a little award for my business. It was my second one from them that they had awarded me. And that was really meaningful to me because of the place where I came from. You remember when you first start your journey, and you start with like nothing, and you just work and you grow at it, and you accomplish all these things, and it's really important to celebrate yourself.
Mhm.
We celebrate other people all the time. We have to celebrate ourselves. Um, I went away and I stayed with my friend, and I bought a one-way ticket.
Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do that, but I've never done it.
I bought a one-way ticket. It was at the time of year where I could afford to do that because we get really slow in the
Mhm.
fall, like fall going into winter. So I was there for almost 3 weeks, and I was staying with my friend, and it was amazing. It was hot. I would go in her garage and use her boxing thing, whatever. So I would work out in her hot garage and just let everything sweat out. And by the time I came home, I started feeling so much better. My body was healing. So yeah. So then when I got home, I started experiencing symptoms again. I said, something's not right. My real estate career is what saved me in that sense because, I have to deal with home inspections. I'm not a home inspector, but I know how to identify things. And that's part of our job, is to know when to call in a professional. Like, for me as a real estate professional, my job is to take care of people the best that I can. I'm only one person. So if I can identify something, my real estate career is what saved me. My knowledge of, all the homes that I've sold, and all the experience that I've had is that it was like a light bulb. I said, I know exactly what this is. So we had the air ducts cleaned, we had the guys come out, and there was mold growing on the air handler.
Gosh.
So we had the air ducts cleaned, that serviced, and from there, mold lives in your body, so you have to detox from that. So I spent a lot of time detoxing from that. I did feel better. I did feel a lot better. However, I was still experiencing issues, and I wound up having a massive polyp removed. Actually, the doctors thought they were going to have to give me a hysterectomy.
Oh my gosh. How long
Yeah.
did you go around thinking that?
Um, for a few months.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's
Yeah. And then
awful.
I went to the appointment for my pre-op, and I just knew in my gut, and I just could, everything in my body was going off saying this isn't right. And I was having conversations with as many people as I could. So, when it comes to health, it's so important to be our own advocates,
Advocate.
because,
Yep.
medical professionals are trained, in the traditional Western medicine sense, they're trained in medicine, they're
Mhm.
trained in surgery, they're trained in those textbook things. But, you know, how many illnesses have overlapping symptoms?
Mhm.
You go to WebMD, I have a sore throat, you're gonna die, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Oh gosh, right? Or you like listen to all these commercials for all these prescription pills and they like
Mhm.
give out all of the you might experience these symptoms and it's usually all the awful same ones. So I'm like, this literally sounds awful.
So it's so important to be your own health advocate. Nobody knows your body like you know your body. So I just knew. So I canceled that and I said, I'm gonna keep detoxing from this mold. And I just knew in my core there was something else, right? So then I went and did some other appointments, and they found a polyp, a massive polyp, the size of my uterus.
My
It
good.
was so painful, and, there was a lot. I mean, I don't know if this is too much to experience, but or I don't know if it's too much to talk. Oh my god, I cannot even talk right now. See, this is a really good example of re-experiencing your trauma in real lifetime,
Oh,
because I have to talk about this, and this whole experience was trauma in its own. And so what happened, my business took a hit, but yeah, I feel like this is really important to share because, we're talking about business and trauma, and, you know, people struggle in their business, or they struggle to do things, or it's, I know I have to do this, but, well, what is it that you need to take care of? And so, who is in your circle maybe that has experienced something like this? At some point, maybe I might offer something to some type of program or something where I don't know, where I can, people that feel lost, because I know I felt very lost.
I can attest to that myself. So yeah. And because I think too with business, we like naturally want to attach like an identity to something.
Mhm.
Like I'm defined because I do this or I'm successful at that. And then you add the layer of social media. And if you're using your, personal brand online to promote what you do, your identity gets wrapped up in that. And, going back to the whole health thing, it's like all of that is a response to all the other things that are going on in your life.
Well, so the identity thing, yes, and that's part of it, because I was sharing my whole real estate journey. My whole
Oh yeah.
brand, my whole real estate brand really took off when, so I was partnered with another agent at one point. Things didn't really take off for me brand wise until I cut my hair and went off on my own.
Okay, I was just looking at an older picture of you that you had posted with your long hair, and I remember you with long hair, and I loved you with long hair. But your brand did completely change when you cut your hair, and that's the power of a haircut. But why do you think that is?
Because I was doing what was most authentic to me at the time. And I had been thinking about it. But what was I doing before? I come back, I'm in this new life. I wanted to fit in. When you start in the real estate business, they tell you, okay, you have to do this, and I feel like there's so much guidance on things to do, but not enough on taking those things and adopting them to what works for you in your most authentic way, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of ways to do this business, and a lot of ways to not do it. Right, and what works for me is not going to work for you and vice versa. We all have to there's a seat for every chair. And same thing with our clients, right? They're the people that will gravitate towards us are the people that are meant to work with us. But
Mm.
how do they show up? They show up when we show up for ourselves. And so, yeah, I came here, here I am, this New Yorker. I'm wearing black all the time and, pin straight hair. And I was, highlighting it. So it was, I wanted to be like blonde at the time. It was a very like neutral thing. It just got to a point where I felt stifled.
Mm.
I felt stifled and I just said, this isn't me. I went in one day and I was going to get a color correction on the highlights. And I said, you know what? Cut it off. Cut it off and dye it back to its normal color.
As someone who I never make any decisions about my hair. I think I've cut my hair twice in my life, like short, but it works for you. But that's
Yeah,
interesting. You're like, just take it off.
that my hair itself was really unhealthy. It was just kind of like fried. She told me that I'd have to cut like a huge chunk in order to just cut off all the stuff that was damaged. And then we'd have to do the color correction on top. I'm like, that's too much. It just felt like I was like, this just is not right. It just felt like I was trying to fit into something that wasn't fitting me. But really, it's a story of liberation. And, I could have stayed in that type of situation, but that really was not helping me grow. I was in a situation where I was not helping myself grow. And, hair is symbolic. When we cut off dead ends, we're letting things go in our life. There's a really good, heavy, solid, maybe 7 years of experience in there, maybe more of heavy, heavy experience. So I worked for that. I
Mm.
worked my ass off for that. And I earned that. I earned now that if people talk to me, they know what they're getting. They know that they're going to get quality. They know that they're going to get expertise. They know that I am not going to just try and sell them something just to get business and that they're really going to be provided the full service. And I don't cut my commission for that reason because they're paying for my years of experience and what I bring to the table in that sense. I have worked with a lot of clients that have worked with agents that have been wildly unhappy and they come to me for a corrective experience. So that's also a theme for me.
I was gonna say, what do you think of all of these? I'm a Netflix girly. And so
Mhm.
when all of these Netflix shows started coming out about real estate agents and kind of showing their lives and their work, is that accurate? Like, is that accurate? Like what a workday looks like? Are you going around looking like that? These girls in these fabulous outfits, or like has that been a game changer in real estate, you feel like?
I will say that every market is different.
Mhm.
So in their market, in that world, that's how they show up. And I do love the authenticity of this is how I'm showing up today. If I showed up in my market like those girls show up in theirs, people would be like, what is this girl doing? It's
Right.
just not the vibe here.
Mhm, mhm,
It is not the vibe here. But every market is different. I know somebody that has sold, $2 billion worth of real estate in Colorado in many days. He wears jeans and pullovers and boots because that's the most appropriate attire to navigate showing homes in their,
mhm.
navigate selling homes where they are with the snow and so forth. So,
Right.
okay, so we talked about trauma, we talked about identity, and my identity in 2018, 2019 is much different than what's going on for me now. At that point, I was sharing parts of my life that were relevant to my goals at that time, which was related to, achieving as much as I could in real estate.
Mm.
And now that that I went through that health journey, that sickness, had surgery, that had all that stuff, I really want to share with people, when you're on your path, it's important to have goals, but to remember to always check in and stay present with yourself. It's really easy to get lost in what other people are doing,
Mm.
especially when you are looking up to other people. That's when we lose our authenticity. That's when we can lose ourselves. That's when we can not show up as our most authentic self because we want to replicate whatever is going on. I think it's so important to use it as inspiration. Whatever somebody is doing that's in alignment with your goals, really. should be purely inspiration. And how can you take that inspiration and make it your own?
I
And I
was
can attest to that as a creator, as a content creator, I've gotten a lot more into content creation. I would honestly, I'm like one of the original real estate influencers. Nobody was influencing in real estate when I started doing this, and I got a lot of love for it. I also got a lot of hate for it. And I did let that get to me. I don't now. So, you know, anyone that's ever given me hate, I don't care.
didn't affect me. How have you separated the using the inspiration, the whole like what is it? Imitation is a form of flattery. But when you are growing your business online, it can be really hard to, I do it all the time. I'm like, oh, I love this person's digital branding business, or they're offering this service now. Should I be offering it? And a lot of times it can feel really debilitating when you're on there and constantly comparing yourself. But how do you, use those platforms for just strictly inspiration? Like,
I have saved folders on my Instagram, and I have them categorized.
tell us, this is a hot tip. This is going to be good. I know it. Tell me what you do.
I love
Love
this.
this.
Okay. I have folders on Instagram under my saved content. So I have one for goals, I have one for business tips, I have one for healing, I have one for oh gosh, I have so many. I literally have like 20 of them. And some of them are not even relevant to I have content. I have a folder specifically for content ideas. I actually rarely go back because
I love
whenever
that.
I make content, it winds up just coming from my brain. When something strikes and it's right, it just comes from my brain. But consuming that inspiration is what gives me the inspiration to alchemize it and make it my own. Right? It's like,
Mhm,
okay, here's all the ingredients for the cake, but I'm gonna make this cake with my own hands.
mhm,
Right? And it's gonna come out in my flavor.
mhm. Yeah,
Because if you had the ingredients and I had the ingredients, they're not gonna taste exactly the same
right. Yeah.
even if we have the exact same ingredients because we're human. And that's the beauty of celebrating your uniqueness. And I also think it's really important to stand out as and stand out with that uniqueness because you never know what you're doing for somebody else or how you're changing their life or what you're bringing to the table that somebody else might not be. If we just keep copying each other all the time, we're just going to keep getting the same things.
Mhm. Do you have any advice as to what you think is really working on growing a personal brand right now? Or if you were to say, like, if I had to restart growing my personal brand, this is what I would be doing right now.
I will tell you what, I am always reinventing my personal brand.
Okay.
And what that looks like is what is right and true to me, myself, right now. Think about it. You have goals, you reach your goals.
Mhm,
Now what? What's next?
mhm.
It's that evolution journey.
What platforms do you think are the places that people should really be concentrating on right now for growing their personal brand?
I always love Instagram. Instagram is my one true love.
I love Instagram.
um, yeah, TikTok is a big one, but it's also a different way of translating information.
Mhm,
So I would definitely recommend, following your favorite creators that feel like you're in a similar realm with.
mhm,
I follow creators on Instagram who share the same visions as I do, right? But
mhm.
again, our output is different, and it's really cool because we wind up supporting each other and learning from each other. So you also want to look for other accounts that are similar to what you would like to accomplish. But at the end of the day, you're going to put out what feels most authentic to yourself. So, if people are doing this, that, or the other thing, it's really easy to get lost in that
Mhm.
because what's working for somebody else might not work for you. If you feel excited about it, that's a big indication you should move forward with it.
Ooh, I love that tip. That's a good tip.
If it feels icky and gross, big sign, let it go. Let's make this note. There's a creator
Yeah.
I follow, and he started with, just memes, and then he started a personal coaching business. And although the coaching doesn't apply to, my situation, I still love to support him and follow his content. But what was really interesting to me when I was following this account is it just switched so much from memes to being totally super serious. And I noticed the energy kind of died a little bit. And
Mhm.
now the content, and now then there was a little break, and now the content is still that coaching sense, but it's translated in a way that's fun and funny. And so the delivery is really important because
Mhm.
this person went from delivering information in a soft and serious way, which was not authentic to this
Mhm.
person's self,
Mhm.
versus now delivering the information in a way that is fully authentic. And it's so wild to watch the comments and the shares and the way that this person's audience is reacting. That is, I feel like, a really good case study on
Mhm.
why it's so important to be yourself, because it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there. It's hard to be authentic.
Right.
You want to talk about reinventing ourselves, or our branding. My audience right now responds to my things that are a little unhinged, and it's really weird for me because my brand is luxury. My brand is being polished. I am a polished person. I mean, look at me. I have a short blunt haircut. I'm like, this is, go like this with a cloth, I'd squeak, squeaky clean.
I do get that. That's funny.
To be able to share that other side of myself that is fun, energetic, silly, a little unhinged is really scary.
Yeah.
Um, and that's fear of rejection. So, when we go back to the shadow work, it's also being comfortable with putting yourself out there truly and full.
I'm gonna do and add all of your links and things like that in the show notes,
Okay.
but pimp yourself out. Tell people where they can find you because it's not your old Instagram handle. She has a different one now.
Oh,
So
yes.
don't go
Oh,
look for
no.
that.
My handle is not EVGWBFF Pro anymore. My handle is my full name, Emily Van Giezen, or if you type in EVG, it might show up. Um, Elevated with Emily coming soon. That's a little Easter egg.
Ooh,
That's
okay.
actually available across all platforms. Literally every single platform was available, even Pinterest. Um, I have not dived into it yet, so anyone can follow that if they want to be the first ones when
I
I do
love it.
start posting on there, Elevated with Emily. But right now, the best place to find me is on Instagram, Emily Van Giezen. Of course, right now I am focusing less on real estate content. Actually, most of my content is not real estate related anymore. It's really just lighthearted, fun, relatable content. And I'm moving in the direction of a lot of what we talked about today, actually. So there's going to be I'm going to incorporate more of that. And my message really is for people to be in their authenticity, to know that they can do hard things, to encourage people to, if they're not happy with their situation, have the courage to make the changes little by little, step by step. So all of those things are coming. But for now, join in on the good fun vibes while
I
all of
love
that
it.
stuff is in the works.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to watch all of it happen. So I'm excited for everyone to follow along and experience that. But thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll have to have you back because we got a
Thank
ton more we can talk about. So
thank you so much for having me. That was a lot of fun.